Well, hello everybody. How are you? I know I've got a little bit of a thing back there. That's actually Christmas gifts, if you can believe that. Um, so I either plan ahead or fall behind. I'm not sure. It's spring ahead, Dr. Feravich. Yeah. All right, so we got the wrong name up here, but that's okay. We're gonna correct that quickly by erasing the wrong name, and then we're gonna get into our story. We added our spider and our classroom engagement. If you haven't seen yet, where have you been? You haven't been in class today then. If you haven't seen yet, we changed our chalkboard to match the season. And then to get ourselves engaged in things that are going on, we decorated it for the season. We are in our reading room, and I don't want to take too much time writing the whole name of our book, but we do know what our book is called, don't we? It is The Wondrous Life of Oscar Wow. Let's get going. This probably doesn't need to be popped up like that, but it does help my back a lot right there. Okay, we are on chapter 2, Wildwood, 1982 to 1985. It's never the changes we want that change everything. This is how it all starts, with your mother calling you into the bathroom. You will remember what you were doing at the precise moment for the rest of your life. You were reading Watership Down, and the rabbits and their does were making their dash for the boat, and you didn't want to stop reading. The book has to go back to your brother tomorrow. But then she called you again, louder, her "I'm not fucking around" voice, and you mumbled irritably, "Si, senora." She was standing in front of the medicine cabinet mirror, naked from the waist up, her bra slung about her waist like a torn sail, the scar on her back as vast and inconsolable as a sea. You want to return to your book to pretend you didn't hear her, but it is too late. Her eyes meet yours, the same big smoky eyes you will have in the future. "Ven Eka," she commanded. She is frowning at something on one of her breasts. Your mother's breasts are immensities, one of the wonders of the world. The only ones you've seen that are larger are in nudie magazines or on really fat ladies. They're 35 triple Ds, and the areolas are as big as saucers and black as pitch, and their edges are fierce hairs that sometimes she plucked and sometimes she didn't. Dear Jesus. These breasts have always embarrassed you, and when you walk in public with her, you are always conscious of them. After her face and her hair, her chest is what she is most proud of. Your father could never get enough of them, she always brags. But given the fact that he ran off on her after the 3rd year of marriage, it seemed in the end that he could. You dread conversations with your mother, those one-sided dressing downs. You figured that she has called you in to give you another careful about your diet. Your mom's convinced that if you eat more platanos, you will suddenly acquire her same extraordinary train wreckage, secondary sex characteristics. Even at your age, you were nothing if not your mother's daughter. You were 12 years old and already as tall as she was, a long, slender-necked ibis of a girl. You had her green eyes, clearer though, and her straight hair, which makes you look more Hindu than Dominican, and a behind that the boys haven't been able to stop talking about since the 5th grade. and whose appeal you do not yet understand. You have her complexion too, which means you are dark, but for all similarities, the tides of inheritance have yet to reach your chest. You have only the slightest hint of breast. From most angles, you're flat as a board, and you're thinking she's going to order you to stop wearing bras again because they're suffocating your potential breasts, discouraging them from popping out of you. You're ready to argue with her to the death because you're as possessive of your bras as you are of the pads you now buy yourself. But no, she didn't say a word about eating more platanos. Instead, she takes your right hand and guides you. Your mom is rough in all things, but this time she is gentle. You did not think her capable of it. Do you feel that? She asks in her too familiar, raspy voice. At first, all you feel is the heat of her and the density of the tissue, like a bread that never stopped rising. She needs your fingers into her. You're as close as you've ever been, and your breathing is what you hear. Don't you feel that? She turns toward you. Coño, muchacha, stop looking at me and feel. So you close your eyes and your fingers are pushing down and you're thinking of Helen Keller and how when you were little you wanted to be her, except more nunnish. And then suddenly, without warning, you do feel something. A knot just beneath her skin, tight and secretive as a plot. And at that moment, for reasons you will never quite understand, you are overcome by the feeling, the premonition that something in your life is about to change. You become lightheaded and you can feel a throbbing in your blood, a beat, a rhythm, a drum. Bright lights zoom through you like photon torpedoes, like comets. You don't know how or why you know this thing, but that you know it cannot be doubted. It is exhilarating. For as long as you've been alive, you've had bruja ways. Even your mother will begrudge you that much. Hija de Liborio. She called you after you picked your tia's winning numbers for her and you assumed Liborio was a relative. That was before Santa Domingo, before you knew about the great power of God. I feel it, you say too loudly. Lo siento. And like that, everything changes. Before the winter is out, the doctors remove the breast you were needing along with the auxiliary lymph node. Because of the operations, she will have trouble lifting her arm over her head for the rest of her life. Her hair begins to fall out, and one day she pulls it all out herself and puts it inside a plastic bag. You change too. Not right away, but it happens. And it's in that bathroom where it all begins, where you begin. A punk chick. That's what I became. A Suez-C. S-I-O-U-X. A Sioux, right? As in a Sioux Indian. Susie. And the Banshees loving punk chick. The Puerto Rican kids on the block couldn't stop laughing when they saw my hair. They called me Blancula. And the Morenos, they didn't know what to say. They just called me devil bitch. Yo, devil bitch. Yo, yeah. My tia Rubelka thought it was some kind of mental illness. Hija, she said while frying pastelitos. Maybe you need help. But my mother was the worst. It's the last straw, she screamed. The last straw. But it always was with her. Mornings when I came downstairs, she'd be in the kitchen making her coffee in La Greca and listening to radio WADO. And when she saw me and my hair, she'd get mad all over again, as if during the night she'd forgotten who I was. My mother was one of the tallest women in Patterson, and her anger was just as tall. It pincered you and its long arms, and if you showed any weakness, you were finished. Que muchacha tan fea, she said in disgust, splashing the rest of her coffee in the sink. Fea's become my new name. Nothing new, really. She's been saying stuff like that all our lives. My mother would never win any awards, believe me. You could call her an absentee parent. If she wasn't at work, she was sleeping. And when she was around it seemed all she did was scream and hit. As kids, me and Oscar were more scared of our mother than we were of the dark or El Cueco. El Cuco. Quaco. She would hit us anywhere in front of anyone and always free with the chanclas and the correa. But now with her cancer, there's not much she can do anymore. The last time she tried to wail on me, it was because of my hair, but instead of cringing or running, I punched her hand. It was a reflex more than anything, but once it happened, I knew I couldn't take it back. Not ever. And so I just kept my fist clenched, waiting for whatever came next, for her to attack me with her teeth like she did to this one lady in the Pathmark. But she just stood there shaking in her stupid wig and her stupid bata with two huge foam prostheses in her bra, the smell of burning wig all around us. I felt almost sorry for her. This is how you treat your mother, she cried, and if I could have, I would have broken the entire length of my life across her face. But instead I screamed back, and this is how you treat your daughter? Things had been bad between us all year. How could they not have been? She was my old world Dominican mother, and I was her only daughter, the one she had raised up herself with the help of nobody, which meant it was her duty to keep me crushed under her heel. I was 14 and desperate for my own patch of the world that had nothing to do with her. I wanted the life that I used to see when I watched Big Blue Marble as a kid, the life that drove me to make pen pals and to take atlases home from school, the life that existed beyond Patterson, beyond my family, beyond Spanish. And as soon as she became sick, I saw my chance, and I'm not going to pretend or apologize. I saw my chance, and I eventually took it. If you didn't grow up like I did, then you don't know, and if you don't know, it's probably better you don't judge. You don't know the hold our mothers have on us, even the ones that are never around, especially the ones that are never around. What it's like to be the perfect Dominican daughter, which is just a nice way of saying a perfect Dominican slave. You don't know what it's like to grow up with the mother who never said a positive thing in her life, not about her children or the world, who was always suspicious, always tearing you down and splitting your dreams straight down the seams. When my first pen pal, Tomoko, stopped writing me after 3 letters, she was the one who laughed. You think someone's going to lose life writing to you? Of course I cried. I was 8 and I was already planned that Tomoko and her family would adopt me. My mother, of course saw clean into the marrow of those dreams and laughed. I wouldn't write to you either, she said. She was that kind of mother who makes you doubt yourself, who would wipe you out if you let her. But I'm not going to pretend either. For a long time, I let her say what she wanted about me, and what was worse, for a long time, I believed her. I was a fia. I was worthless. I was an idiota. From ages 2 to 13, I believed her, and because I believed her, I was the perfect hija. I was the one cooking, cleaning, doing the wash, buying groceries, writing letters to the bank to explain why a house payment was going to be late, translating. I had the best grades in my class. I never caused trouble, even when the Morenas used to come after me with scissors because of my straight hair. I stayed at home and made sure Oscar was fed and that everything ran right while she was at work. I raised him and I raised me. I was the one. You're my hija, she said. That's what you're supposed to be doing. When that thing happened to me when I was 8 and I finally told her what he had done, she told me to shut my mouth and stop crying. And I did exactly that. I shut my mouth and clenched my legs and my mind. And within a year, I couldn't have told you what that neighbor looked like or even his name. All you do is complain, she said to me, but you have no idea what life really is. Si, senora. When she told me that I could go on my 6th grade sleepaway to Bear Mountain, and I bought a backpack with my own paper route money and wrote Bobby Santos notes because he was promising to break into my cabin and kiss me in front of everyone. I believed her. And when on the morning of the trip she announced that I wasn't going, and I said, but you promised, and she said, muchacha del diablo, I promised you nothing. I didn't throw my backpack at her or pull out my eyes. And when it was Laura Saints who ended up kissing Bobby Santos, not me, I didn't say anything either. I just lay in my room with stupid Bear and sang under my breath, imagining where I would run away to when I grew up. To Japan maybe, where I would track down Tomoko, or to Austria, where my singing would inspire a remake of The Sound of Music. All my favorite books from that period were about runaways. Watership Down, The Incredible Journey, My Side of the Mountain. And when Bon Jovi's Runaway came out, I imagined it was me they were singing about. No one had any idea I was the tallest, dorkiest girl in the school, the one who dressed up as Wonder Woman every Halloween, the one who never said a word. People saw me in my glasses and my hand-me-down clothes and could not have imagined what I was capable of. And then, when I was 12, I got that feeling, the scary, witchy one, and before I knew it, my mother was sick, and the wildness that had been in me all along that I tried to tamp down with chores and with homework and with promises that once I reached college, I would be able to do whatever I pleased, burst out. I couldn't help it. I tried to keep it down, but it just flooded through all my quiet spaces. It was a message more than a feeling, a message that tolled like a bell. Change, change, change. It didn't happen overnight. Yes, the wildness was in me. Yes, it kept my heart beating fast all the long days. Yes, it danced around me while I walked down the street. Yes, it let me look boys straight in the face when they stared at me. Yes, it turned my laugh from a cough into a wild fever. But I was still scared. How could I not be? I was my mother's daughter. Her hold on me stronger than love. And then one day I was walking home with Karen Cepeda, who at the time was like my friend. Karen did the goth thing really well. She had spiky Robert Smith hair and wore all black and had the skin color of a ghost. Walking with her in Patterson was like walking with the bearded lady. Everybody would stare, and it was the scariest thing. And that was, I guess, why I did it. We were walking down Main and being stared at by everybody, and out of nowhere I said, Karen, I want you to cut my hair. As soon as I said it, I knew. The feeling in my blood, the rattle came over me again. Karen raised her eyebrow. What about your mother? You see, it wasn't just me everybody was scared of, Belicia de Leon. Fuck her, I said. Karen looked at me like I was being stupid. I never cursed, but that was something else that was about to change. The next day, we locked ourselves in her bathroom, and downstairs, her father and uncles were bellowing out some soccer game. Well, how do you want it? She asked. I looked at the girl in the mirror for a long time. All I knew was that I didn't want to see her ever again. I put the clippers in Karen's hand, turned them on, and guided her hand until it was all gone. So now you're punk? Karen asked uncertainly. Yes, I said. The next day, my mother threw the wig at me. You're going to wear this. You're going to wear it every day. And if I see you without it on, I'm going to kill you. I didn't say a word. I held the wig over the burner. Don't you do it, she swore as the burner clicked. Don't you dare. It went up in a flash, like gasoline, like a stupid hope. And if I hadn't thrown it in the sink, it would have taken my hand. The smell was horrible. like all of the chemicals from all the factories in Elizabeth. That was when she slapped at me when I, that was when she slapped at me when I struck her hand and she snatched it back like I was the fire. Of course, everyone thought I was the worst daughter ever. My tia and our neighbors kept saying, Iha, she's your mother. She's dying. But I wouldn't listen. When I caught her hand and the door opened, I wasn't about to turn my back. When I caught her hand, a door opened, and I wasn't about to turn my back on it. But God, how we fought. Sick or not, dying or not, my mother wasn't going to go down easily. She wasn't una Pedeja. I'd seen her slap grown men, push white police officers onto their asses, curse a whole group of banchacheras. She had raised me and my brother by herself. She had worked 3 jobs until she could buy this house we live in. She had survived being abandoned by my father. She had come from Santo Domingo all by herself, and as a young girl, she claimed to have been beaten, set on fire, left for dead. There was no way she was going to let me go without killing me first. Figurin de mierda, she called me. You think you're someone, but you ain't nada. She dug hard, looking for my seams, wanting me to tear like a ways. But I didn't weaken. I wasn't going to. It was that feeling I had that my life was waiting for me on the other side that made me fearless. When she threw away my Smiths and Sisters of Mercy posters, Aquí yo no quiero medicones, I bought replacements. When she threatened to tear up my new clothes, I started keeping them in my locker and at Karen's house. When she told me that I had to quit my job at the Greek diner, I explained to my boss that my mother was starting to lose it because of her chemo. So when she called to say I couldn't work there anymore, he just handed me the phone and stared out at the customers in embarrassment. When she changed her locks on me, I had started staying out late, going to the Limelight, because even though I was 14, I looked 25. I would knock on Oscar's windows and he would let me in, scared because the next day my mother would run around the house screaming, "Who the hell let hija de la gran puta in the house? Who? Who?" And Oscar would be at the breakfast table stammering, "I don't know, Mommy, I don't. Her rage filled the house, flat, stale smoke. It got into everything, into our hair and our food, like the fallout they talked to us about in school that would one day drift down soft as snow. My brother didn't know what to do. He stayed in his room, though sometimes he would lamely try to ask me what was going on. "Nothing. You can tell me, Lola," he said, and I could only laugh. "You need to lose weight," I told him. In those final weeks, I knew better than to walk near my mother. Most of the time, she just looked at me with the stink eye. But sometimes, without warning, she would grab me by my throat and hang on until I pried her fingers from me. She didn't bother talking to me unless it was to make death threats. "When you grow up, you'll meet me in a dark alley when you least expect it, and then I'll kill you, and nobody will know I did it." Literally gloating as she said this. "You're crazy," I told her. "You don't call me crazy," she said, and then she sat down panting. It was bad, but no one expected what came next. So obvious when you think about it. All my life I'd been swearing that one day I would just disappear. And one day I did. I ran off, deep because of a boy. What can I really tell you about him? He was like all boys, beautiful and callow, and like an insect, he couldn't sit still. Un blanquito with long hairy legs I met one night at Limelight. His name was Aldo. He was 19 and lived down the Jersey Shore with his 74-year-old father. In the back of his Oldsmobile on University, I pulled my leather skirt up and my fishnet stockings down, and the smell of me was everywhere. That was our first date. The spring of my sophomore year, we wrote and called each other at least once a day. I even drove down with Karen to visit him in Wildwood. She had a license, I didn't. He lived and worked near the boardwalk. one of 3 guys who operated the bumper cars, the only one without tattoos. You should stay, he told me that night while Karen walked ahead of us on the beach. Where would I live? I asked, and he smiled. With me. Don't lie, I said. But he looked out at the surf. I want you to come, he said. He said seriously. He asked me 3 times. I counted. I know. That summer, my brother announced that he was going to dedicate his life to designing role-playing games, and my mother was trying to keep a second job for the first time since her operation. It wasn't working out. She was coming home exhausted, and since I wasn't helping, nothing around the house was getting done. Some weekends, my tia Rubelka would help out with the cooking and cleaning and would lecture us both, but she had her own family to watch after, so most of the time we were on our own. Come, he said on the phone, and then in August, Karen left for Slippery Rock. She had graduated from high school a year early. If I don't see Patterson again, it will be too soon, she said before she left. That was the September I cut school 6 times in my first 2 weeks. I just couldn't do school anymore. Something inside me wouldn't let me. It didn't help that I was reading The Fountainhead and had decided that I was Dominique and Aldo was Rourke. I'm sure I could have stayed that way forever, too scared to jump, but finally what we'd all been waiting for happened. My mother announced at dinner quietly, I want you both to listen to me. The doctor is running more tests on me. Oscar looked like he was going to cry. He put his head down. And my reaction, I looked at her and said, could you please pass the salt? These days, I don't blame her for smacking me across my face, but right then it was all I needed. We jumped on each other, and the table fell, and the sancocho spilled all over the floor, and Oscar just stood in the corner bellowing, stop it, stop it, stop it. Hija de tu maldita madre, she shrieked, and I said, this time, I hope you die from it. For a couple of days, the house was a war zone, and then on Friday, she let me out of my room, and I was allowed to sit next to her on the sofa and watch novellas with her. She was waiting for her blood work to come back, but you would never have known her life was in the balance. She watched the TV like it was the only thing that mattered, and whenever one of the characters did something underhanded, she would start waving her arms. Someone has to stop her. Can't they see what that puta is up to? I hate you, I said very quietly, but she didn't hear. Go get me some water, she said. Put an ice cube in it. That was the last thing I did for her. The next morning, I was on the bus bound for the shore. 1 bag, $200 in tips, Tio Rodolfo's old knife. I was scared. I couldn't stop shaking. The whole ride down, I was expecting the sky to split open and my mother to reach down and shake me. But it didn't happen. Nobody but the man across the aisle noticed me. You're really beautiful, he said, like a girl I once knew. I didn't write them a note. That's how much I hated them. Her. That night while we lay in Aldo's sweltering kitty litter-infested room, I told him, I want you to do it to me. He started unbuttoning my pants. Are you sure? Definitely, I said grimly. He had a long, thin dick that hurt like hell, but the whole time I just said, oh yes, Aldo, yes, because that was what I imagined you were supposed to say while you were losing your virginity to some boy you thought you loved. Okay, that's where we're going to stop. So there's a new section. Okay, so this is Dr. Annette Feravich. I love this book. I just love it. It just seems, I don't know, so real for me, and I just love real stories. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. We are here in the reading room, and we are reading The Wondrous Life of Oscar Wow. Right now we're in a section about his sister. So I find that to be kind of interesting. It's not just about his life. So those chapters are long chapters. We're on chapter 2. We're starting, we're stopping at a section and we're learning about his sister, Lola. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. Thanks for joining me here in the reading room. I'll see you tomorrow at our new time, early birds at 8:30. Thanks for joining me.